Hello, Gold Derby fans. It's an exciting day in New York because the 2022 Tony nominations have just been unveiled. We've been digesting them all day today, and one of us, I don't know, one of us scored really well on the prediction center, so I might brag about that a little bit, but
Yes, you did.
I'm joined by some exciting guests. I have my colleague David Buchanan and Susan Haskins of Theater Talk, and now with us at Gold Derby. Thank you both for sitting down with me. It's a great day, and the nominations went pretty well. I think it represents a pretty good cross section of this season, but I can always find something to complain about. So there's certainly snubs we can talk about here. So Susan, let's start with you. What was your most egregious snub? Who
Oh, you start right with that, with my most egregious snub. Wait a minute. I have to, because I wasn't. I mean,
or David, if you're not ready.
Snubs, okay. Snubs, I noticed. Like as I told you, I am not seeing Company. I was out of town for 18 months. I am not going to see Company till Sunday. So Katrina Lenk was snubbed, but ask me after I've seen it to tell you why.
Well, David, who are you most upset didn't make it?
Well, there's a few. So I was going to mention Katrina too. And, my working theory on it, number one, all of these races were so crowded and they managed to have such close vote tallies that some of these categories are so supersized. Like, how many names are they going to read in this category? On and on and on.
Six, over and over. How many ties can you have?
On and on and on. So, but I think, one of the theories I have on Katrina is the performance has been growing and evolving since previews in November and opening in December. And based on the timing of when people saw Company, I think, if you saw it earlier, maybe you were less inclined to vote for her than if you saw her now. So that's my theory. And that's one of my stumps. I'll just name two others quickly. One, Johanna Day for How I Learned to Drive. She's one of the returning cast members from the original production. She's an absolutely brilliant actress. The Tonys like her. She's gotten a number of nominations in the past, so it was sad to see that. And also the snubs for Is This a Room, which is one of only 5 productions from the season that didn't get any nominations. They did a great job of recognizing shows, but that one to not have anything made me sad.
Yeah,
but don't you think? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's speaking of Is This a Room, I had the thought, like, after I think The Minutes was the last new play I saw of the season, and I just had the thought, I was like, I haven't seen a bad play this season, which is amazing. And there's Is This a Room, Chicken and Biscuits, Thoughts of a Colored Man, Birthday Candles, and Passover received nothing, which is a shame. I think any number of those could have gotten in a different year. And it's really too bad because I think really all the plays were standouts this year. And that was the one. That was the one category I wanted at the time. Yeah, Passover. I was surprised.
That was such a gripping play that I'm sorry it wasn't in.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Is This a Room that the thing that it was basically a repertory with Dana H, wasn't it not?
It was.
I think that might have worked against it.
I think that and Dana H were kept out because Best Play is where we also recognize not just the producers but the playwrights. We don't have a separate category for Best Writing for plays, which we really should. Tonys, we should honor them.
We say this every year, Sam.
I know, and they never listen to me. But
they never listen.
But I think because they, Is This a Room is a direct transcript of that event, it's it's not as much of a playwright award in that sense. They're really focused on the playwrights now, I think.
And so too Dana H.
Yes.
Where and I wonder, well, apparently it used to be the policy for the Tony nominators is they don't discuss. But I wonder if the thinking there was that those two were in the words of others, transcripts. I mean, not to jump ahead, but Dana H was so moving, and I think that it's deserving of a Best Actress award and Best Sound. Certainly a big contender, but just questioning this. It was very, very artful to put it together, but it was the words of
Right. Well, let's switch over to happier things. So what are your favorite surprise person who wasn't guaranteed a spot here, but managed
but can I say one more snub?
You sure can. You sure can.
J.O. Sanders
Mm.
for Girl from the North Country. And although his was not a singing role in that musical, I was thinking about how Tony Shalhoub, back in the band's Visit, won the Tony for what was essentially not a singing role. And J.O. Sanders was such a powerful presence, held that show together, and is a magnificent actor. And I was very sorry not to see him.
Yeah, that was a sour one. Well, let's switch then and talk about who made us happy in the nominations this morning. I know I was very ecstatic that Carmen Cusack got in, because she had been down low, but in our odds, not in the top 5, I think, at all during the season. But I was convinced she was going to get in because it was such a moving performance to me, no matter what you thought of the show. I haven't got her singing out of my head. David, what did you think? What made you happy?
That's a great one. I was happy that got into score too, which I think we had in our odds, but it was nice to see that it actually happened. I had a few that made me really happy. Number one was Julie White for POTUS, just because she really, she can do no wrong. Rachel Dratch was kind of our, of that wonderful ensemble, if they were going to pick one, Rachel Dratch was emerging as the one to pick. But the fact that her and Julie White got in, I was very pleased to see. And also, Sam, you might have this on your list too. Liliana Blaine Cruz for director. Not just for Skin of Our Teeth, but in and of itself, very deserved, wonderful nomination. But also, all the work she's done off Broadway. I mean, such stunning shows to finally, come to Broadway and get this recognition. I was so thrilled for her.
Yeah, Susan.
And such a creative spin on that old play that I was in the 7th grade.
Wow.
And that's a long time. That was with the dinosaurs. All right. So I was so happy about Rachel Dratch. So happy about Rachel Dratch. And I mean, and yeah, Julie White was good, but Rachel, they say you haven't mastered an art form or a skill until you've done 10,000 hours of work. And Rachel Dratch has done 10,000 hours of improvisation, which clearly she did a lot of creating that character. And that broad farce comedy, and she was just, there was a good group, but I felt Rachel was a cut above. And when she started doing that character, which we won't spoiler alert what happened to her, she brought the house down. And I was very, very happy to see her there, because she's taken her lumps in this business, and that was great.
Yeah, she was. I would go buy a ticket just to watch her be high, wearing an inner tube once more. It's worth the price of admission alone. I want to get into some categories here, and David, what you said, we'll jump in based off of that, because Liliana Blaine Cruz, I correctly got her into Best Director, and yet Skin of Our Teeth, despite a Best Director nom, acting nom for Gabby Beans, and every design category, it misses revival of a play. And American Buffalo is actually the only revival, I think, that's also nominated. American Buffalo and For Color Girls, the only 2 play revivals nominated for Best Director. So does that change our standings? Do we think American Buffalo is suddenly a challenger to win the top title?
I'm not sure. I will say it is the direction of a play category was very confusing, because the nominees that they picked, were not what we were expecting at all. And I think one that kind of threw me now, looking at the revival race based on direction, is Take Me Out. It did very well in featured actor, which was a question mark, but how many of these ensemble members are going to get in? Because they're all in featured. Are they going to get more than 1 or 2? Well, they did, but it's not in Best Direction. So that, which was kind of out front for revival, I'm questioning, is it as strong as we thought it was? Overperformed in acting, underperformed in directing, and I'm, kind of scratching my head.
Yeah, I've had For Color Girls out front in that for a long time. I think it's a really special piece that's not produced often, which many of them are in this category, not produced often, but it performed well across the board. It has director, choreography, double nom for Camille A. Brown, design nominations, and nomination potential win for Kenita R. Miller. So it seems like it hits all the unfortunately it's put up an early closing notice, which is very, very sad, but it
Yeah.
hits all the points that you want. Susan, what are you thinking for a revival of a play?
Well, first I will say the thing about American Buffalo, which I believe I've seen 4 times, you know, I, there wasn't to me a lot different that came to it. I get it. It's a brilliant play, and I get it now. And so, in terms of, did you ask me about revival play?
Yeah. What do you think is ahead there after these nominations?
Have to find it in my notes. I've forgotten already.
Well,
How I Learned to Drive. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
How I Learned to Drive. No question about it. No question about it.
Well, one thing that's interesting with that, because of the rule change, Paula Vogel is actually on the ballot, where some of the other playwrights are not.
Why is that?
Because How I Learned to Drive has never been performed on Broadway before.
Oh.
And after Neil
course.
Patrick Harris made a little thing in his speech when Hedwig was winning revival of a musical, but John Cameron Mitchell, of course, couldn't be up there because it was a revival, even though it hadn't been on Broadway. They altered the rules. So if you're a revival based on the classic rule, I've never been there.
You can be there. Oh yeah, I know.
You're on the ballot along with the producers. So that could be a feather in her cap.
Yeah, because they would always go Edward Albee's this, and that was part of their contractual arrangement. And it didn't sound like something Paula Vogel would do, but, but there she was. But I was listening to an interview with Paula Vogel from back in the day, and she was along with Doug Abel, who initially produced that production at down at his theater. And it was very interesting that it was Doug Abel who thought of those 2 actors back then. I thought that, I mean, the significant contribution of the original production, but I still think it will win Best Revival because to me, it's the most timely.
Well, that's just to jump in on that, Susan, you're both making great points on it, because it didn't, I thought Joanna Day would get in, but I didn't expect Mark Brokaw to get in. So it didn't really underperform. Like, it got the key nominations. And actually, I think it could win both acting prizes. I think Mary Louise Parker is going to win a 3rd prize. And David Morse could win because all of the Lehman men are there and they deserve their nominations. If both actors win, it could pick up revival and give Paula Vogel the Tony. So that's a really good point. It might be as strong a contender. You're not gonna go die on this hill with me for Didi O'Connell and Dana H?
I'm with you.
Thank you.
With you.
Wow.
I don't think she will win, but she should win. That was just an amazing performance. And I saw her the other night on a really old Law and Order. She was and I saw that she does not talk that way. Her face does not move that way. And yet she's completely adapted that character. And don't you both agree? We forgot almost immediately that she was not speaking, which is a tribute to the sound, not only to her acting, but what a performance. And Mary Louise, but it's a different kind of performance. And also I'm one to say, well, but she won last year.
I know.
Come on.
I'm just wondering, do you think enough of them saw Dana H in the fall to overcome?
Maybe not, but there is that new system where they're supposed to log in when they saw. Now it is kind of honor based. They can just say they saw it, in their portal. And it's up to the producers if they want to check to make sure everyone who says they saw it is correct and gets to vote. But theoretically, if everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, then the people who are voting will have actually seen all the nominees, theoretically.
And to all you Tony voters that are listening to us right now, I want to say that, remember, there is the New York's best kept secret, the Theater on Film and Tape Archive at the New York Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center, where I saw Dana H. And I don't want to fill up the place so that I can't get down to see a couple more I missed. But that you can go see these things if you miss them, and so convincingly that then I want her for Best Actress even though I
Yeah.
saw her on the screen like that.
Yeah, it was an astounding performance. But Mary Louise is certainly out front.
Yes.
But it's interesting to look at the acting races for the plays. Like, there's 3 men in the Lehman trilogy, all got nominated in this 7-person category. But David Morse seems to be out front. It's kind of rare. There's obviously some unlikable things about that character, but do we think the narrative and the specialness of getting this playback after so long is going to push him over the edge to win?
David, you want to answer? Or should I answer?
No, go ahead.
Well, he's a very dislikable character. I remember the first time I saw the play, I just couldn't bear him. But although Paula has not constructed him that way, I mean, we dislike what he's doing. We dislike his thinking. But she said that she tried in part in writing the play to put herself into the mind of the abuser, which is very interesting thing to do, not to sympathize with him, not at all. So we're not judging Morse that, oh, we don't like that guy, so we won't vote for him. It's too bad. I would have thought one of the 3 Lehman guys would win, but of course I think they'll cancel each other out. Or could they? I mean, there were some wonderful performances there.
Well, it's also, Lehman trilogy, I have to wonder, can anything beat Lehman trilogy? Because I was very shocked that Matthew Dunster missed Best Director for Hangman. I thought for sure he'd get in. And the Minutes, the only other play in there that's still running, got Best Play and nothing else. Austin Pendleton didn't manage.
Another snub.
Yeah, I think if there was a script category, Tony administration, they would have gotten in there, but Best Play is its only nomination. So very tough to pull out a win. And I don't know, will they go for a closed play? Clyde's did very well. It got in not just Uzo, but Ron Cephas Jones and Carrie Young managed to get in. Skeleton Crew did well. But it seems like, do we see anything else kind of challenging Lehman for that win?
No,
I don't.
Even if it's closed?
No, I mean, I had all 3 actors in from the very first day of the prediction center. I had like such terrific odds on those guys because I had all of them and I just stuck with them. But really, I think the fact that they all got in when that certainly wasn't a guarantee. I think that the fact that they all got in, it did well in the design categories, it's in directing. Clyde's really overperformed. I mean, the fact that it got 3 actors in when our odds only had 1, that did quite well. So I wouldn't say, nothing can challenge Lehman, but Lehman is looking as strong as we would have expected it to be a front runner.
And it deserves it. It deserves it. It's so magnificent on so many levels. I thought it was so interesting that it's essentially story theater, and which is a relatively new form in the history of theater. And I would say it was developed in Chicago. But I just thought but it's so brilliantly done and so beautifully produced. I mean, there's some wonderful, wonderful sets and set designers nominated, but I think that is another thing that's going to win. That set is just, how do they do it?
Yeah, it should. Brilliant. I think it'll do well in the design categories for sure. The one thing I will mention about Clyde's, which is, could be a benefit to its chances, is that Lynn Nottage is behind it. And she's had an amazing year. She's nominated for Clyde's, the book of MJ, and she also had Intimate Apparel off Broadway. So she's having one of those years where sometimes they reward you for a really stellar year like that, where you're all over the place. And
she's a great talent.
She's the only female playwright to win the Pulitzer twice. She's an incredible, well-respected playwright. If we look over at musical, MJ, which she's involved with, was, I did think I chose to die on the hill of flying over sunset as well. So I didn't take that out of my predictions, even though I knew MJ was going to get in somewhere. But I thought it would have like 4 nominations. It wound up with 10. Is that like the new challenger to A Strange Loop, do we think? No?
No.
Why not? Tell me, Susan.
All right, you guys tell me. I haven't seen MJ yet. I may go now because it got so many nominations. It got the second biggest amount of
Mhm.
nominations.
Yeah, 10 to
But I
A Strange Loop's
but I
11.
didn't go. And you tell me why I didn't go.
Well, sure,
Which
there's
Michael Musto said
We
the
know.
other day.
We know. Yeah,
yes,
we know.
there's
know why I didn't go.
obviously, you know,
And
people.
if I were a Tony voter, that's why I would have seen it. But there is a level on which it's interesting because we certainly are running a spectrum on child abuse in these nominations. And I don't know, because you tell me, there's wonderfully creative people. You know, Lynn Nottage wrote it, and I imagine she made a great deal of money, and all in all in all. But the fact that it's, for some people, the idea that it's just, I mean, and I feel uncomfortable because I haven't seen it, and these people are also good, and the set designer is brilliant, and blah 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 blah. But on the other hand, you're not going to see an R. Kelly the musical. You're not, and because he didn't have a supportive rich family to produce it, and I may be wrong, and I may be being unfair and an old a moralistic scold, but there's people I think who may go in that direction. I don't know, and it's not fair for me to say because I haven't even seen it yet, and I feel very, as sad as I am for Michael Jackson's victims, I'm sad for him too. But apparently none of that is in this show. Not that that would make a good musical.
No, it would not make a good musical. But I think the gist with MJ is that the musical is very slick. It's very entertaining. Obviously, as you said, everyone behind it is an expert of their craft. It's very well put together. And the interesting thing was that's frankly not the only controversial element that voters were separating art and artists, separating art and controversy. You know, David Mamet said reprehensible, indefensible things, but they didn't penalize the actors and the designers for that. They included
True.
it in.
But is that the same?
Bible. Well, I guess that's up to the individual. We'll see.
It's something, and again, I really shouldn't, because I haven't seen it, and it's not fair to the work because we're supposed to be objective. But your question was, could it win over A Strange Loop? And I'm saying no. I think that, although someone said an interesting thing to me, that what scene from A Strange Loop are they going to put on the Tony broadcast?
That's a very good question. They're gonna Michael R. Jackson is gonna have to do a little lyrical rewrite, I think, for any number they choose. I don't even think I could quote some of it right now without getting taken off of YouTube. But it's great. But the interesting thing is, I think in terms of what is more popular mass appeal right now is 6, which got dinged a little bit. It missed Book, which I was afraid of. I almost took it out of Book because I have already heard you know, some voters say, well, it's just a concert. That's the structure's kind of simple. What can 6 win? Can it take down musical? Can it take score?
Well, 2 answers, or to answer different questions. Number one, your question about A Strange Loop, is it still out front? I think this has become a much more interesting race because prior to the nominations, it was kind of A Strange Loop as front runner and 6 as challenger that could win score and, you know, pick up a few trophies, and then can it win? The fact that Paradise Square, which we did not think was going to do this well, has 10 nominations, and MJ has 10 nominations. You know, there is broad support for a few of these shows that I think Best Musical is a kind of multiple candidate. Whether we still think, you know, Strange Loop is out front to win it, there's a bit of a contest here, so that's very exciting. On 6, can it still win Best Musical? Yeah, you know what? Like the kind of appeal of the show, of the kind of overall show, maybe is outpacing some of its parts. So, you know, you're not maybe going to award it for Best Book or even give Best Book a nomination, but you love the kind of complete package. I do think Best Book, I didn't have it in Best Book until last night when I said, oh, that's foolish, you know, it's going to do well, put it in Best Book. Well, foolish of me, but you know, like that, it kind of underperformed a little bit. So I don't know if it's, you know, could it be the one that takes 1 prize and then wins Best Musical because everybody adores it? Maybe.
It certainly is doing better than almost anything of the new musicals. it's very creative and energetic, and the audience goes nuts, and it has those fabulous costumes that mix the period along with now. The book is a little trivial if you know the history of the period, because someone called it a Me Too musical, and yeah, but I mean it does for any buff of that period, it's not just reduced to the fact that Henry was suppressing them, that it's a contest about who was the meanest. I mean, it was a very, very, very complicated period. And I think for all its success, I mean, Bravo 6, it's a huge success. It's very, but that it was dumbed down a little, thinking that the audience would eat it up if they took out something as complex as the Protestant Reformation. And, but that worked, it worked. But then that takes away the book thing. It's the book thing.
Yeah, it's just an interesting race, because I think, to our point that we can't say a lot of the lyrics from A Strange Loop, I think it's a brilliant musical and it deserves to be out front. I think there will also be some people who are turned off by it because of its frankness, or because, I mean, the nominators and the voters are a different group of people. The nominators this year was one of the smallest bodies we've had in a while, because it ended up being only 29 nominators.
Oh, really?
I didn't know. So many people at the end could not get in to see every show, or at least every show with all the actors in, because there were COVID cancellations. The schedule was nuts. I mean, I know I saw 7 shows in 7 days at the end of April. So it's a crazy schedule to keep up with. And then if COVID happens to throw things off, you're screwed, quite frankly. So I'm just wondering, like, if the larger body, we saw the larger voting body completely deny slave play last year because it was very in your face.
Yes, how weird.
I'm not hearing quite the same level of discomfort with A Strange Loop. Maybe being a musical helps. Like at slave play, I definitely heard people say like, oh, I don't ever want to see that again. Like it was a show that people appreciated more than loved, I think, when it comes to voting.
But are they going to be more uncomfortable with A Strange Loop than MJ?
Well, that's the thing, is I think why A Strange Loop still remains out front is, even if there are people who are uncomfortable with its subject matter, perhaps, and don't want very frank sexual language, I'm not sure if they're going to unite around things, or unite around one show.
6 could win.
If they don't think, maybe, if maybe. I think it's the popular choice. People who want to reward a success will reward it.
Sure is popular. And I don't know, Paradise Square isn't quite on the level of the others. To my, for all that went on, it's kind of confusing, isn't it?
Well, it is certainly very ambitious. I don't know if it all lines up, but it has a lot going for it. I mean, I certainly enjoyed my time with it. Joaquina Calacango, frankly, at one point I had her in first place. She would still be in a still running show at the time of voting, so that would benefit her in the Best Actress race. I think it's still probably Sharon D. Clarke's to lose for Caroline or Change. Yeah. But
agreed. I picked her last year for Coquina for Slave Play.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't go for that show.
Nope. But no, and I was sorry that the director of Paradise Square, who did his damnedest to pull it together, didn't get nominated.
Yeah, the directing categories were very weird this year, but I don't think Paradise Square is what they're going to unite behind. I don't think it seems lately they've been kind of favoring things that feel new, that feel artsy, that feel like they're saying something important. And Paradise Square is, but it is saying important things, and it is providing a window into a piece of history we don't often see, but the style of the musical doesn't feel like it's reinventing the wheel or anything. I think it is very purposefully constructed in the vein of like a classic epic musical like Les Mis or Ragtime. It's trying for that vibe.
So Sam, then to you, which of the the remaining nominations for musical are most reinventing the wheel?
Well, I would say it's, I think it's still between A Strange Loop or Six. I think Six will by far be the musical, the new musical this season that runs the longest, becomes the biggest financial success, whether or not it wins any Tonys, frankly. I think it is just dinged a little bit after today. Unfortunately, I don't know why they put the women in lead. I know I've said this in every video, but for one of the top musicals of the season not to have any acting nominations, despite there being incredible performances, like the women are so, everything is hyper specific, hyper choreographed, the vocals are out of control, but they should be in featured. So it was the incorrect decision.
And then they could have had the category.
Yes, I mean, there was obviously support there. You saw at the drama leagues put Brittany Mack and Adriana Hicks in their distinguished performance category. So it's not like they didn't have support, but when you stack up those roles to everything that Sharon D. Clarke is doing, or Joaquina Calacango or Carmen Cusack, it just doesn't equal the same amount of oomph, you know.
And I would say too, the Tony nominators this year, you know, so many ensemble shows in the plays and even the musicals, they were very discerning on shows where we could have said, oh, so many terrific candidates, who do we vote for in featured? You know, maybe we won't vote for any because there's so many good ones. They really nominated, they weren't daunted by figuring out which of these ensemble members we want to reward. And it reflected that in the nominations today. So if they went featured, all these 6 actresses, they probably could have grabbed a slot or 2. They really could have.
Yeah, easily.
And that's not the girls' fault. That's
No
production, what the producer's decision, I do believe. I way back, we interviewed Joel Gray, who was not nominated for Chicago. You're too young for this, you guys. But he sang Mr. Cellophane, and they screwed up his nomination and not put him in the supporting category, and he didn't get the nomination, which he would have won. So
all I heard was I was too young. Thank you for calling me young. After 30, you need those notions. Well, we're going to do many more videos like this as the season goes on, and we're going to be constantly changing our predictions as the season goes on, as we second guess ourselves back and forth over who will emerge on top, whether it's A Strange Loop, Six, someone else, and if anyone could pull out the biggest surprise of all time and take down Lehman Trilogy. So if you're out there, if you're out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Make sure you stay in touch with us throughout this Broadway season, and thank you all.